is the Sunday edition of our Data Roundtable. Let me adjust the camera, bring you guys over here. How are you? Good to see you. I'm so glad that we get to spend another day talking about data science, being data professionals together, and basically just kind of sharing in our work, sharing in our passion, sharing in our advancements, our failures, our everything, right? So thank you so much for being here. This is a format that I run on a daily basis. I'm running it every single day during the summer. I think today is the start of my fourth week in this format. So we've been at it a month. Geez, time flies. But I'm here to hold space, to uh, bring us all together and facilitate our discussion. And our discussion can be on anything you want. We can talk about articles, news, white papers, the personalities in AI, the future of AI, the current problems with data, whatever it is that you want to talk about, I'm here for it. By the way, I'm also using a new phone today. I decided to, I've been using my iPhone 13, and now I'm using my iPhone, I believe this is the 15. So I think the camera quality might be a little bit better. Maybe the audio is even a little better. Let me know if that's the case, guys. Let me know how the video is coming along. I hope that the quality is good. If not, let me know. But I'm basically here to see if anybody wants to talk about anything that's on their mind. I'm here for it. I'm here for any type of discussion you guys want. It's just kind of a beautiful thing for us to be able to come together and talk, right? And as I've said before in some of my content, I also like doing this format because what we do here and getting together like this, it's a skill. It's a skill in data science. It's a skill to be able to sit in a team room and talk and say, hey, this is how I view things. What do you think? Oh, you view them differently? Why? Tell me about that. Or yeah, I saw your presentation. I see why you're choosing that algorithm. Yeah, I agree with that. It's really important to be able to do that, right? It's important to be able to give your opinion, receive others' opinions, understand those perspectives, and understand where people's feedback is coming from. Maybe it enables you to rethink your own approach, your own assumptions, your own whatever, right? So that's part of the reason why I'm also choosing this format to kind of help us develop that skill. So I'm glad you're here. Hang out. Let me know where you're from. Let me know what you're thinking about. Let me know how your weekend's going. And we'll just see where the conversation takes us. We've had some great conversations throughout the past month. I really can't believe it's been a month. Wow. But we've had some great conversations. And again, I just like the freedom of the format that you never know what we're going to talk about. We've talked about jobs. We've talked about AI. We've talked about problems. We've talked about a little bit about life. So let me know that you're out there. Let me know what you'd like to talk about. Today is a beautiful Sunday out where I live. I'm going to do my streaming, and then I have to go get my groceries, and then I'm going to come back, make my breakfast, and basically enjoy the rest of my day. I had a great afternoon yesterday. I managed to spend some time talking with one of my mentors yesterday. So that was a lot of fun. And yeah, just having a good active weekend over here on my end. But how's your weekend going? Let me know how you're doing. Let me know if you're working on anything. Let me know what you're doing this weekend to make yourself just a little bit of a better data scientist. I think it's important to you don't have to become an amazing data scientist right away. It takes time, and that's okay. So what are you doing today to improve? What are you doing today to get that little 1% better, or even 0.5% better? What are you doing? It's good to examine yourself and say, hey, am I really putting my best foot forward here? Am I really doing the best I can, or doing additional work or additional improvement over my skills? I think it's good. It's a healthy thing to kind of take assessment of that, right? So let me know what you're up to. I've been doing a lot of client work recently. I've been so blessed that my coaching business has grown in the past couple of months here. This whole year really has been a great time of growth for my coaching business. But I'm just going to keep on doing that, keep on trying to get just a little bit better as a coach and see where I end up. In the chat, we have my good friend 619. 619, how are you, my friend? Good to see you. Hope things are well in Thailand. What are you doing? It's late. Don't you have school tomorrow? Hopefully, you're not staying up too late, my friend. Although I know that in other cultures, staying up late is a common thing. Maybe not here, maybe not here in the U.S., and certainly not for me. I go to bed pretty early. But glad to see you, 619. 619 says, how are you, sir? I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for asking. I appreciate when people ask that. I'm doing very well. I slept pretty good last night. I've been up early. I went to walk my dog. Um, yeah, just getting my day going. In my world, there's always something to answer. There's always content to create. There's always a script to write. There's always a review to do. There's always my business. I got to run the business side too. So there's there's always something to do. So it's been a busy morning, but it's been a great morning. Thanks so much for asking. I hope that you've had a good day too. I know that for my followers in India and Asia and that part of the world, it's basically the end of your day. My day is just beginning. It's 8 a.m. where I live. So I hope that you had a good day. Michael, how are you? So good to see you. Michael, thanks for being here. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your support as a member of the site, with the little icon next to you. Thanks for being here, Michael. Michael says, good morning, Dennis. Good morning to you too, Michael. How are you? Hope you're doing well. All is good on my end. Hope the same for you. Hope that you're keeping cool in this summer weather. But thanks for stopping by. Checking in from South Carolina. Wow, that's awesome. My sister lives in North Carolina, so same part of the country over there. So good for you. Let me know how things are going out there. I think you guys have a big heat wave coming up, or are in the middle of a heat wave. So I hope you have air conditioning. I know that's not always common on the East Coast. But I'm in here sitting in the air conditioning just like Mother Nature wants me to. So I'm having a good time out here this week, and I hope you are too, Michael. Michael says very hot. Yeah, I've heard. I've seen the heat maps all over the news, and they don't look pretty. They don't look pretty, and it seems to be starting in that part of the country, right? Like the southern part, like what would that be, like the Georgia area, right? I think they say Atlanta is going to be terrible, and I know that South Carolina is not too far from there, right? So I feel for you, Michael. Hopefully you're staying cool out there, or finding some way to stay cool. 619 says, I just found some short articles about GPT-5 that it will be very powerful. How do you think about that? 619, that is a great question. That is a great question. On the one hand, OpenAI is clearly the dominant leader, right? I mean, OpenAI has done some really interesting things overall. So I definitely don't want to doubt them, right? That they've earned the credibility, right? And as I've said, sometimes if you hear the Sam Altman interviews, he says that they have models that take a lot of time to train. So is it possible that they've had a model training this time that's just amazing? Sure. Yeah, that's possible, right? On the other hand, I will say this though, 619. I am taking a little bit of a cautious approach, and this isn't really OpenAI's fault, but I wasn't impressed with the latest Grok release. I thought the latest Grok release was kind of I ran a poll on my Instagram, and most people kind of had the same reaction. Nobody was overly excited about it, right? So I know it's obviously completely different companies and all that, but I am kind of taking a little bit of a cautious view, right? Maybe it won't be that great. Maybe it'll just be like a marginal improvement. Who knows, right? So I'm certainly looking forward to it. I believe that they have promised the release before the end of the year. I believe that's the case, but somebody can correct me in the chat. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I hope OpenAI keeps moving forward and keeps, releasing these great models. I just hope they don't have a little bit of a down release like the last Grok release. So that's my take on it. Certainly happy to be wrong if anybody wants to chime in on that. But that's just kind of my overall take. I mean, OpenAI is obviously a very powerful company. Um, but I'm just kind of being a little bit shy because of the muted Grok release. So let me know what you guys think about that. But that's my take on it. Thanks for bringing that up, though, 619. Great topic for discussion. If anybody else wants to share their view on GPT-5. Michael says we had a very mild spring, though. Yeah, yeah. Um, well, but now you just jinxed yourself. Now that you said that, right? Next spring is going to be terrible. Now that you said that, you're not supposed to say those parts out loud. um, 619 says, I'm excited to know how powerful it will be. Yeah, yeah. I mean, at some point, though, we have to start wondering where is the power or the innovation going to come from, right? Like, I'm sure all of you have seen the curves that say that the abilities of OpenAI of AI in general, sorry, should plateau at some point, right? I don't think we're near that plateau, but you still have to ask, well, where are the improvements going to come from, right? Is it better reasoning, better research, better agentic capabilities? Um, I think some of you might have seen this where Sam Altman was asked about the M dashes. Why does OpenAI have the M dashes? And he talked about how, they have teams that kind of like build in a personality into these engines, right? Like they almost like develop like the style guide for the engines. And is that what's going to improve, right? Like, is it going to have like if OpenAI were to somehow get a grip on all the M dashes and stuff, are we going to call that an improvement? Like, are we going to be excited about that as an improvement? Right? So I hear you, 619. I'm excited too. I'm wishing OpenAI the best. I think they're going to be a dominant player for a while. But let's see. Let's see what they come up with. What does an improvement look like at this point? I don't know. Right? It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. So that's my take on it. Great conversation for the whole chat. If anybody else wants to chime in on that. But yeah, I'm excited. 619, let me know if that article said anything about the timeline, because I know that there's no release date that has been set. The best I saw was that I think Sam said that it was going to be before the end of the year, but that was the only guidance. So if anybody knows anything about that, let me know in the chat. But we'll see. We'll see when it comes out. OpenAI is one of the engines that I have a subscription to. I don't have the mega subscription, but I do have a subscription that basically gives me unmetered access, which is nice. And yeah, looking forward to it. Speaking of access, I also saw something else, and this is just a rumor at this point. But there was also a rumor that Anthropic is going to move Claude Code to having a weekly cap on it, a weekly usage cap. So that would be super interesting because I already limit myself on Claude because I hit the limits way too quickly. So it's just not worth my time. Anthropic is like the last engine that I use. So I'm curious to know how that's going to affect them because I'm really not keen on that whole thing about them, about any company's metering like that, right? I think that's kind of lame. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work out for them. But I did see that rumor that they're going to go to a weekly limit also. So I don't know. That's a dangerous business model. 619 says, I think it's this year. I'm also curious, are those companies nowadays focusing on new models or just feed more data more and more? That's a good question, 619. And who knows, right? I mean, anything I answer to that would be speculation, right? But yeah, I think it's a good question. It's certainly a valid question. Um, I don't know. I don't know what that looks like as far as what they're focusing on. You know what I do remember? I remember that you guys might remember this too. When ChatGPT was first introduced, in widespread release. If you remember, it was introduced in 2023. Yeah, 2023, like early 2023, like February or something like that. And they said that their data was only accurate to like 2022 or something like that, or 2021, right? Like there was a lag built into the data. And that's a problem that's been resolved, right? I mean, you can get near real time or answers on near real time events in ChatGPT, right? They've overcome that. So is that an amazing, like, gonna make the front page of the New York Times innovation? No, but it's a needed innovation, right? We kind of want our AI to be current like that, right? So I hear you, 619. It'll be interesting to see where they're going to find that, but there's still room for them to make improvements on things that are not maybe like groundbreaking, but still very necessary. Like I said, what if they find a way to get rid of the M dashes? Is that groundbreaking? Not really. Is it necessary? Yeah, it'd be super nice to get rid of those, right? Because it's almost kind of a joke now, right? With the OpenAI dashes, right? So who knows, 619? Who knows? Michael says, sorry if off topic. Your thoughts on Astronomer, the company, not the CEO controversy? Have they built a better mousetrap? Michael, definitely not off topic. Anything that's data related, valid conversation. So thanks for that. Okay, so if you guys aren't aware, Astronomer is the company with the Coldplay memes, which are hilarious, by the way. Some people out there with the Coldplay memes are just hilarious. Have they built a better mousetrap? Who knows? Who knows, Michael? It's still too early to tell. It's still too early to tell because there's still so many players in that space, right? It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I'm not ready to declare a winner in that space. I get bombarded with emails from companies like that. Um, and I know I don't want to sell. I don't want to sound like I'm selling anybody short, but it there's a little bit of a cookie cutter element to all those companies, and there always has been, even going back to the dot com boom days, right? You know, they come out of nowhere. They have a fancy logo. They have a charismatic CEO. They have a flagship product. They have their yearly developer days or some conference in Las Vegas or whatever. They have their little hackathons. I'm not seeing anything special out of that space yet, right? There is no winner yet because they're all still kind of like in that like average phase, right? And there will be other companies in the future that come along too, right? So, so Michael, I really can't say that they have built a better mousetrap because everybody is claiming that they have the better mousetrap, right? So let me know, Michael, maybe you've seen something that you really think is like, specific to them, right? Because I'm basically saying that nobody has anything specific to them, right? That they're just like one company is as good as the next, is what I'm saying, right? But maybe you've seen something else that I haven't. But I read the emails, I get the invites to go to the conferences and this and that. Nobody's like really breaking ground out there, right? So let me know, Michael, if you feel differently about that. Maybe I missed something, but to me, it's all the same company, right? It's all the same company, just a different set of people. 619 says, I also have another question. Hey, ask as many questions as you'd like, my friend. If one training takes more than a month and maybe a lot of power, how do they know that their solution will work out if it isn't like a waste of money? You don't. You don't. That's part of the risk. That's part of the risk of model development. There are no guarantees, right? There's ways to mitigate that. The way you run your experiments, the way you monitor your experiment metrics, right? I mean, because you can tell when a model is headed to a good place or not, right? Um, so 619, I know you told me that you're still kind of new to data science. You're still kind of new, to neural networks, I think is safe to say. So in neural networks, there's this concept of early stopping, where you can stop a model based on the progression of the metrics, right? Because there's multiple reasons why you do that, because you have other baseline metrics to compare against, because the metric hasn't changed after a few iterations, it hasn't changed in a certain amount of time, so on and so forth, right? So there's ways to mitigate that. Like, you kind of know if your model is headed towards a good direction or not. But here's the thing, that even then, it's just on paper, right? Just because your metrics and your monitoring say that the training is going well, doesn't mean that your users are going to perceive it as going well, right? Because you could have a model that's quote unquote improving, but it's just making a different set of mistakes from the previous set of mistakes. So that's why human validation is so important when it comes to, well, it's very important anytime you're doing an NLP project. Don't let anybody tell you differently. That's a huge mistake that companies make. So that's part of it. I think that OpenAI does a reasonable job with their human validation. It's a very difficult task, but I think that they do a reasonable job with it. But Michael, to your point, that is one of the risks. It's a risk that even though your data was good and you know your model is solid and you got some good metrics in your training, and it took a few months, but if your users don't like it because they don't give it doesn't give out, you know, sensible answers, or makes a different mistakes that the previous model didn't make, is that a successful model? Maybe, maybe not, right? So that's part of the risk, Michael, that yes, there is no guarantee you're going to find a good model. You can mitigate it with things like early stopping. But even then, even if you do get to the end and you do get good numbers, you got a good loss level, you got good recall, good precision, all that stuff, your users just may not like it. Does anybody out there like M dashes, right? I know I keep on coming back to that, but it's good. It's a good example here. Does anybody like M dashes? No. Could OpenAI have predicted that it had M dashes? Not really, right? It's been kind of a surprise thing. So where does that leave you, right? It doesn't invalidate the work, doesn't invalidate the model, but if your users pick up on it, then your users pick up on it. Like, you can't tell them to ignore it, right? So yeah, 619, good question. Good question. But yeah, data science development is not risk-free, right? There are risks that you could do that. And also, you can scale that down to your own work when you're working at a company, or you're taking on new data, new project. There's no guarantee that you're going to come up with a viable algorithm. You can try. You can have phase zeros that kind of help you set yourself up for the best attempt at it, and maybe like, abandon a project early, kind of like a fail fast approach. But there's no guarantees. No guarantees in data science. And in a way, that kind of comes back to the previous discussion we had this week on autonomous vehicles, because as you guys know, I'm not bullish on autonomous vehicles. What if there is no machine learning solution to driving? I think that might be the case. I think there's a non-zero probability that machine learning can't solve driving. Right? What if we have to later on as a society say, hey, you know what? This whole thing has failed. You need to be prepared to have those discussions, with your team, with your algorithms, with your projects. So yeah, I covered a lot of ground there, so, so I'll stop there. But great question, 619. No guarantees in data science. You can definitely end up wasting money. You could end up in a situation where you spent the last month, you don't have an algorithm, and the AWS bill just arrived in your inbox. That sucks. That sucks. 619 says, so it's just like brainstorming several ideas and hope that at least one will work. Well, yes and no. The brainstorming of ideas and hoping that one works is more about like the champion model process to help you find a good model or a viable model. Now, that's kind of like the precursor, but you were asking about the big training portions, right? You wouldn't do a big training portion until you know that you have a model that has a viable baseline or that beat out other models, right? That's part of the champion model process, right? So that's what I was referring to when you say, okay, I tried 8 different models. This is my champion model, so I'm going to go into deep training with that one. And that's the ones that can take days, hours, months, multiple months to train. So that's kind of like what I was referring to in my answer. Like when you do like the deep training. Because when you're doing like a champion model process, you don't need to train on your entire data set. You just need to train on the same data set across multiple models, right? And then that'll give you a baseline, give you an idea of what model's doing better than others. That's the experimentation side. It gives you an idea of the hyperparameters, so on and so forth, right? But you wouldn't go into like a multi-month training process without doing some sort of a champion model search first. So I hope that makes sense, 619. I know you're still a little bit earlier in your learning path, but that's kind of like one of the phases that you would do in data science, right? You wouldn't proceed to such an involved or intense training cycle without already having done the brainstorming and the experimentation. But yeah, like I said, you could easily spend a month working on something and burn up a lot of time, burn up a lot of processing resources, run up a big cloud bill, and you don't really have a successful model to proceed with. That happens, and it sucks. But it does happen. Yeah, great questions, guys. Great questions. All right, guys, I think I'm going to switch over to Instagram. You're welcome to join me there. But thanks, everybody, for joining in. Again, this is the Data Roundtable format. Please join me every day. You can bring up any topic. I love the variety of questions that we had today. So please, as always, it's a crazy world out there. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care, everybody.